Hey everyone, this is Athletes and Antiquities. In today's video, we're going to be talking about a history of the booms in the Pokemon hobby and discussing if another boom would be good or bad for it going forward. So how we're going to do this is I've created a little timeline here with various cards. Each of these cards represents a different point in the hobby. I'm going to talk about each one going from the beginning all the way up till present, and then finally we're going to wrap it up with what do we look like going forward, because looking behind us is only so helpful. It's more beneficial to kind of extrapolate what we've learned and apply that to the hobby itself going forward in terms of health, growth, and eventually value too. So things started in Japan in 1996. That's what this Japanese base set Mewtwo represents. So in 1996, they released Pokemon Red and Pokemon Green. It wasn't Red and Blue, they actually did Pokemon Red and Pokemon Green over in Japan. And in 96, it was a local craze. It had a slow start, but it had moderate attention. It was a successful game, but it wasn't anything crazy. It was just a normal, successful game. And it stayed like that for a little bit until actually CoroCoro, magazine in Japan. You might have seen some CoroCoro promos like the Shining Mew and stuff like that, but CoroCoro releases an article about a special Mew. I don't have a Japanese Mew handy, so we're going to use a Mewtwo here. But they released an article about a special Mew because people realized there was an 151st Pokemon in the Pokedex, but you couldn't access it in the games because in the normal playthrough the Mew was unobtainable. So CoroCoro releases an article about a special Mew that was going to be given out to 20 winners of a contest. I don't know the exact details of the contest, but you had to submit something and you were picked at random. And this made everybody go crazy. There weren't a lot of events like this in video games at this time. It was a fairly new concept. So this absolutely took Japan by storm. There was a contest with 20 winners, and almost 100,000 people entered this contest. I believe it was about 80,000 people entered this contest. This craze just exploded popularity for this game in Japan, and even the makers of the games actually credit Mew to literally saving the Pokemon franchise, because they were successful, but they didn't think they were going to make another one. They thought Green and Red were a one-off thing, but this massive popularity of Mew actually spurred them to make games going forward. And after this, not because of this, but they were making these things were in the works, but after that Mew event, a lot of things came out afterwards. They came out with an anime, and then a TCG, and then a manga, and all these other supporting assets to the games just drove popularity up way more. But this is still only in Japan. This is 1996 up until our next boom, which is moving on from our Mewtwo here. I'm going to put it off down low here. We have Pokemon going global. This was the second big boom in the Pokemon hobby. This was 1999. And the reason why it went so crazy was because this slow buildup of things from Japan, where they got the games, then they got the TCG, the anime, the manga, these things slowly came out in Japan and built up popularity. In the US, that wasn't the case. Those things were already established. So all of those different medias, the game, the shows, the TCG, the books, everything hit the Western world at once. Instead of the slow increase, the slow rise in the water level that Japan experienced, we experienced an absolute tidal wave. Red and Blue came out, the anime, the TCG, now the movie Pokemon 2000 came out also. All bombarded the Western public at once, and it just took everything over, because everywhere you looked, whether you played video games, whether you played cards, whether you watched movies, whether you watched cartoons as a kid, no matter what you did, Pokemon was everywhere in North America and other places too, but I'm mainly speaking about the Western world. It was absurd. It took the world by storm. And this craze was basically unmatched. The entire world was focusing on Pokemon for that year, that 1999 year when just everything changed. And since then, there was a lot of popularity, but for the sets releasing after that, popularity started to dwindle. After Pokemon base set, they released Jungle and Fossil, and those two sets completed the 151 Pokedex with that Mew promo. All of those three sets, because base set didn't have the entire Kanto Pokedex, but once Jungle and Fossil came out, those were very popular. But every set after that, it gave you a Pokemon that you had already seen, whether it was Rocket, whether it was the gym challenge, or any of those. All of those, they tried to do something unique, whether it was with dark Pokemon or the gym leaders like Blaine's Charizard and stuff, Blaine's Moltres, Sabrina's Gengar. Although they had niches and they were unique, but they were featuring the same Pokemon. So popularity started to go on a little bit of a decline. Then they released Pokemon Gold and Silver, and eventually Crystal to kick off Gen 2. I don't have a card for Gen 2, but because this isn't its own boom, this is just a slow decline. Gold and Silver came out, they were very popular, but they didn't have the same effect. They didn't hit that craze. The Pokemon company as a whole remained strong, but it slowly fades over the next coming years. And this brings us to our first dark period, which I represented with the EX era. So when the Gen 2, when the Neo sets came out, and the Neo games like Gold and Silver, they started to wane, but things kept on going down through the EX era. When EX Ruby and Sapphire came out, the games themselves, Ruby Sapphire, they didn't do too well. The cards were selling much less, so they reduced print runs. Things got way down. They bottomed out in EX Emerald. And so this era was kind of like a dark period for the hobby because there wasn't much interest, there was no media attention, it was old at this point, everyone had already played Pokemon. And while these games were still coming out, the cards were still coming out, there was new Pokemon like Salamence here, a Gen 3 Pokemon, there wasn't that same attention, so it was this slow slide into a decline. And I'm going to leave this up here for a bit because it lasts for a long time. We have the 96 boom, the 99 boom, they're right next to each other. But after 99, we go through the EX era very slow, and we continue going down through Diamond and Pearl. Diamond and Pearl releases, I don't have a Diamond and Pearl card, sorry, I should have had more cards out here. Diamond and Pearl releases, and the Pokemon company thinks this is going to be their last game. But there was a slight uptick in demand. It wasn't anything crazy, we're still in the ruts here, still very low print runs, very low demand for the games, that's why they're so expensive now. But things were not looking good, but they said, you know what, we're still selling well, we're going to try it again with Gen 5. And if Gen 5 goes down, then we're calling it quits. So they released Gen 5, and that's this Reshiram here. Black and white Reshiram, I have the Zekrom too, but I'm just doing one card from each generation. Black and white releases, and the games do a lot better. The games feel much more polished. If you play Gen 4 is my favorite generation to replay, but going from Gen 4 to Gen 5, is a huge increase in the atmosphere of the games. They have weather. They have you walk through and it's fall, then it's snowy if you boot up your game in December or whatever it is. It feels more real. They're a big step up in terms of graphic design and stuff. And there was a good increase in popularity. Gen 5 we're still in the background in terms of games of all time. You're competing against Halo and all these other massive IPs like Call of Duty, but Pokemon is a solid foothold, but it's not wowing anybody. So Black and White release, it does very well. It's a big uptick, but it's still not the interest that we see to get today. And it slowly builds into the XY era. Again, I don't have an XY card, but this next card represents the next boom. We go through the XY era. It's solid. What is it? Kalos, I think it's called, or it's France. And there's solid demand for it. It's again more than Black and White, so we're on an incline now, but it's still very slight. And then everything changes with our next boom. Summer of 2016, Pokemon Go comes out, and Pokemon Go takes the world by storm in the likeness that we hadn't seen since 1999. They released this app. I'm sure you've all played Pokemon Go. Everyone's outside, everyone's playing with each other, they're all going to parks, they're going to local community events, they're going to local stores that have their own Pokemon Go stations and stuff. Everyone's outside. It was I saw some tweet online where it was the summer of 2016 was the closest we got as a country and as a world to world peace, because honestly, if you were there for it, it was true. Everyone was outside, everyone was talking to each other, you were meeting up with strangers, and just saying, hey, like, you want to battle, you want to trade, you want to go catch that whatever legendary together. It was a huge community event, and attention towards Pokemon surged. This is a 2018 card, but it still represents that era, you know? And Pokemon Go is going strong. And then right after that, we have a second hit. We have our second boom here. And if you couldn't guess it, it's Evolutions. Evolutions comes out very end of 2016. I think it was like November or December of 2016. So only a few months later. And this is like a part 2 of the 2016 boom, but it's noticeable enough that it's its own category. It's a very nostalgic set. I literally have only one Evolutions card because I didn't really have an interest in it. I collected base set, but Evolutions comes out, everyone's drawn back to cards because all of these guys and girls from the 90s see, oh, I remember collecting that Machamp, that Charizard, that Blissey, whatever, from 1999. I want to buy that set. And there's another massive increase in popularity built off of Pokemon Go, but this thing sets itself apart. Very nostalgic, second boom in a very short span, and prices on things like original WotC absolutely surge. And I'm going to take a quick sip of water, sorry. So prices surge once again. We're seeing doubles, triples in prices of things like base set Charizard. Shadowless becomes a thing of its own. Shadowless was always a thing, like with guys like Gary. He was collecting Shadowless since '99, but Shadowless starts to really gain its own identity. Before it was known about, but not a lot of people cared. But this is kind of when it starts to separate itself. And then in 2020, I'm actually gonna bring back, I guess this still applies because we still have one more boom, but these are kind of tied together. In 2020, there's the COVID outbreak, and there are lockdowns. People have lots of free time. We can't go outside, so people start pulling out their old collections. You know, prices on cards go way up as people are sitting in their house ordering things online on eBay and things like that. People are buying back their childhoods. And prices, we see insane run-ups. We see doubles, triples again on top of the 2016. Because in between 2016 and 2020, there wasn't a whole lot going on. It kind of died down a bit. It was a bit of a dip. But once 2020 hits, it shoots right back up. And there's all this demand for even things like puzzles. It's even outside of Pokemon. People just wanted inside activities because everyone was stuck inside. Puzzles are going up in value. Art supplies are going up in demand. Pokemon, obviously, Magic, just like other sorts of card games, sports cards are going up. Anything that you can do on your own, in a house, doesn't require going outside. All of these things increase in value, and Pokemon is one of the front runners of that. So so COVID's going crazy in 2020, and then 1 year later we have our second big hit in a short period of time. And this is kind of where I have my alt art here to represent. And this is the Logan Paul box break. This happened in February of 2021, so about a year after COVID, because COVID was like January of 2020. February 2021, millions of people that weren't interested in Pokemon are drawn in because of this Logan Paul box break. He marketed it in a genius way. Millions of people watched it, and people started to flood into the hobby because there was some misinformation going on. He was claiming some very high prices of cards, but he would pull a card and be like, oh my god, this is a $10,000 card or whatever, and people would say, oh, I might have that in my collection. And all these people that didn't really care about Pokemon before that are all of a sudden drawn in, and we see another hike up. This works in conjunction with the COVID boom. They work hand in hand, and prices run rampant. This is the sharpest increase in price we have ever experienced in the hobby. Sports card fans flood into Pokemon. PSA shuts down. It's a perfect storm. Supply chain issues with shipping. Things go crazy. Their product can't get on stores. Lack of supply, insane demand equals insane prices. People get irrational. There's fights breaking out for cards. People are thinking, oh my gosh, it's gonna keep on going. It's gonna go forever. Everyone's getting really crazy with their ideas, and people get kind of dangerous with it. They're over leveraging themselves, spending way too much on this shiny cardboard because, you know, they're getting that stimulus money and stuff like that. And then the stimulus money stops, supply chain starts to fix itself. Logan Paul, he's still into Pokemon, he still posts about it occasionally, but he's not as active in it. People start to walk away, and now we start to see where we are today, which is fringe fans starting to leave, prices start taking big hits. We're still much higher than we are in 2020, but we're definitely a low from where we were even 6 months ago. So all that happens in a very short time. In a few months, prices go from crazy to, I guess, what you call today, more normal, more stabilized, more logical. And yeah, and now we're in the present. And there's all this talk of when's the next boom gonna be? Who's the next celebrity that's gonna get in Pokemon? Is it gonna be Drake? Is it gonna be Justin Bieber? Is it gonna be like whoever? And everyone's expecting the next boom and holding on. They're clutching their pearls. And I think the people that are waiting for the boom are doing it for the wrong reasons. And I could be wrong. So if you're looking forward to the next boom, let me know. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. But in my opinion, a lot of the people that are looking for the next boom are doing so because they want an easy way out of bad investments. If you were buying Kitchen Collectibles' favorite, the Jungle Eevee, for exorbitant prices in PSA 10, if you were buying random holos that have tanked in value, a lot of people want another boom because they can get out of those investments either to break even or to be in the black. Because people bought things very irrationally in this time. I'm not exclusive from that. I didn't buy things like that. I wasn't buying like commons and stuff like that, but there was a few things I bought that have gone down in value. And that's okay, but a lot of people are very worried about that. And I think it stems from a lack of actual interest. If you're like, so if I buy whatever, I don't know, let's use this base set Charizard. Personally, if I was to buy this today and it costed whatever, $500, that's just a rough estimate. It could be more, it could be less. Let's say it's $500. If I bought this today and it went down to $250 the next year, I wouldn't be thrilled, I wouldn't be stoked, but I'd be like, you know what? That sucks, but I still enjoy this item. I bought this card because I wanted a piece of one of the most important cards in the hobby. I wanted a piece of that. So I have it. It went down in value, but I still own this item that I love. But a lot of people were buying things purely for a monetary perspective. I know that might sound kind of weird because I talk about money a lot on this channel, but the people that are watching this, you, me making this video, we all have a genuine love for this hobby. So when things go down in price, it doesn't affect us as much because there's an attachment to that item. I don't just see this as a dollar sign. I see this for the item it is, and the dollar sign is important because I'm not made of money, but at the end of the day, I know I'm buying shiny cardboard. So if things go down, I'm not crushed. I buy within my means, as everyone should, and things like that. And so when people are looking for that next boom, they could be doing it for a genuine reason of, hey, I just want more attention in the hobby, more people to talk to. I want this to be more normalized. And that's all very valid, and I agree with you there. That was the good side of the boom. But the bad side of the booms that we've experienced are fringe people that don't really care about this hobby, just pumping their effort into it purely to make money. And making money is fine. There's nothing wrong with making money in this hobby. But at the end of the day, these are things that we assign value to. So the people that do that put themselves in a very dangerous situation. If you have no interest in this item, and this item goes from 500 to 250, if there's no interest in that item, it hurts you a lot more. So all those people that were buying things at the top because they didn't understand the market, the people buying the $1,000 EVs, I'm sure they're not doing too well right now. They might have left the hobby because they didn't understand it. They didn't have that love. They were buying it because they thought it was the next stonk, and now they're being hurt by it. So now we see this migration away. So what I would personally rather see, and again, you can let me know if you agree or disagree with this, I would rather see steady incremental growth. I would see a slight increase over time. That's much more favorable to me than these massive spikes. COVID was very beneficial. The boom was very beneficial to me in ways because like I had cards beforehand that all went up and that all increased greatly, but I would much rather trade that for just a slow, genuine increase. Something organic, something like what we saw in the black and white and XY era. That was like optimal in terms of like how the hobby grew. And I think now we have the opportunity to be back in that time. We're back in that time where all the stonkers are kind of leaving and the people that are left have genuine interest. And I can see that now we're in a time where we might not have a boom for another few years. Between 1999 and the first real boom after that, it was like 15 years. It was Pokemon Go technically. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with even if we don't see great interest or great increases for the next 5 years, as long as we see stability. I think for genuine fans, that's all we can really ask for. So this was a bit longer of a video. I just kind of wanted to, it was a bit of a rant, but also a bit of a history lesson that I personally thought you might find interesting. So let me know if you like this. If you didn't like it, also let me know. And if you have any ideas for videos you might want to see coming out of me going forward, just leave me a comment and say, hey, I'm thinking about this. What do you think about it? You want to make a video about it? And most of the time, I probably will. If I have the knowledge in that particular item, I would love to make a video about it. So yeah, that's all I have for you guys. And thank you very much. See ya.